Okay, so TDN is this tool down here at the bottom of the 15-minute screen. Well, in this case, it's running on the 5 also, but I'm going to concentrate on the 15. I've got a red line, a gray line, a yellow line, and we'll call it a magenta line. Magenta is only marking 0. So it tells us whether these other lines are above the 0 mark or below the 0 mark. The TDN itself is the red line, indicated here, trading at 8 right now in this indicator from this red box. So I've color matched these boxes to the lines so we know what they are. The gray line is the magnet, which represents Microsoft, Amazon, Google, NVIDIA, Apple, and Tesla. So that is what's making up the largest part of the S&P 500, and it happens to be the NASDAQ also. So this indicator right now, because of the overlap between them two, will work just as well on the NQ as it does on the ES. They're almost identical. So that indicator can only go to the maximum of +6 and -6 because there's only 6 items in that particular indicator. The yellow line is the percentage that the magnet is moving. So it's tracking and it's magnified. That's why it's, it won't represent, if you look, added up all what those 6 stocks were doing, it wouldn't add up the same number because it would represent too close to 0 and you wouldn't be able to see the line. So this is just showing sort of what the 6 magnet stocks are doing in a visual representation. The green line, or the green box, which doesn't have a line, is there just to tell us from the one candle back, if it's green, that means that line is moving up. And sometimes the line is so flat, it's hard to tell. So the green or red is really just helping us know what the 6 top stocks of the S&P 500 are doing at any given moment. I'm running the 5-minute right now as an experiment, predominantly to get a more, what we call it, a finer view, a more magnified view of what that actual magnet line is doing, if it's moving up or down. Like right at this moment, you can see the 15-minute is moving up, but the 5-minute is moving down. So the 5-minute of the 6 biggest stocks, the magnet stocks, are moving down at this moment. So it's a more granular scale. So I really haven't been using much of the other stuff, just really the percent line on the 5-minute. I've marked on, I'll go over the rules of the system, really simple, and then I'll show the trades that have kicked off based on that system. I personally like to let at least an hour, and most of the time 2 hours, go by in the morning, just take a real chill out in the morning, let this system generate enough information to tell me really what is going on, or as close of a picture I can get to what is really going on. So I'm not in a rush to trade with this. So 11:30, 2 hours in is about my, the time that I like to start. I find the afternoon tends to be more reliable than the morning. The only time that doesn't take place is on them days that we get a real strong opening trend. Otherwise, I sort of wait some time. The idea is that when the TDN on the 15-minute moves 2 points, when it moves 2 points, a green arrow will be produced. I go to the corresponding candle of where that trigger arrow was produced. If the market trades above the price of that candle, that is my signal to get long. So at this time in the morning at 10:15, there is a long. But as I said, I wait for 11:30 most of the time. So if I go to 11:30, this is actually my first candle that would be that produced a 2 a move of 2 points on the TDN, which gives me a long over the top of this candle that my cursor's on. That would be at 42.73. So that's where it would trigger. And I use about a 10-point stop is my range for right now. I'll go over stop a little bit more in a few seconds. I'll just finish with the rules. So that's a long trade. Kept moving up. We finally got a red arrow over here, which is the bottom of this fairly long candle. Now, the difference between these two trades is here I have my magnet moving and my TDN moving strong. Everything moves strong. So this trade here, and if we look over on the 5-minute, went nice and sideways, giving me a pretty decent spot to get long. I could set stops at various levels at 68. I could set stops at 63 using the chart to determine my stop location. Problem with this one when it was short, and that's why I got these gray bubbles on the thing, is to see that I've got a 5 up on the magnet and I've got a really strong or quite strong TDN when this thing triggered. So I would be reluctant, if I think this is a trending day upward, I'd be reluctant to take this trade. And as you can see, it really didn't set up the same kind of opening environment for the short. So I didn't take this, but the rule would have been to take it short here. There was definitely enough room, 71 all the way to 67. So there's 4 points in there. If a person was tight with their stop, then you definitely could trade that and even be successful. The thing we have to kind of recognize with this is, are we going sideways? Is it a sideways day or a strong trending day? If it's a sideways day, then I'm going to be tempted to be very careful with my stops. So here on this trade, because I had a 5-6 magnet and I'm still above 0 on my TDN, I would have ran a very tight stop on this trade had I took it. The next trade comes up. We got a green arrow here where the gravity line just popped into. When it went above this candle, whereas I got my first TDN indicator, there's the top of the candle. Here's where it went above, took some heat, but if I use my 10 stop or half of the trigger candle, if it's big, the whole candle if it's small, this trade would have held. I'd have had a 81 to 72, so not even, 6, 7 points of heat, and away it went and it took off. Everything was pretty strong when this trade was taken. I mean, the percentage move on the 5, percentage move on the 15 was strong moving up when this thing triggered. So it added some confidence to be able to take this trade. Now, that is the system in itself, is just the TDN arrow, make sure the next candle takes out the high or the low. That's the trigger for entry. Nothing really much more complicated than that. Here's where the nuances come in, is if the stop is something that you can't get your head around. Example, this long. Because this long came where it did, and I have a level down here at 67, my stop I'd want to be down here at around this, somewhere below the low of this candle. To me, that's too big. If I put on this long trade, that's a long ways away to have my stop. I have 2 ways to do it. I can use information on the chart to determine where I want to put a stop if it's inside my risk reward. The other is I can let it pull back and hope that the indicator comes back around and gives me a trigger at this, closer to this lower level. Using, and I've just started to adopt this, in CHOP, I look to my stop and then find my entry that I desire. And if I do not get the trade, then so be it. I don't get it. So I'm using my stop to help find my entry. So looking for the stop where I want it, not the stop based on mathematics from my entry. In the trend, you don't have that luxury. You have to kind of take the trades when they come because it's going to trend away from you and you're not going to get it. So unfortunately, I did not get this. I did not get this long because I wanted to trade. I wanted it to come down into this. It got close, but I was looking down into about the 72 area so I could get my stop down below 67. But that's the nuances that I use for my entry. I use this as a system that says, here's where my trade is. Now, what's the best way for me to get an entry on this thing based on today's conditions? And then will use some of the 5-minute stuff to just sort of see if what I'm trying to do has got some help with some arrows or some movement over there. I think that's it. That's the summary of it. If anybody has any questions, this would be a great time for them.
Yeah, so my first question that I can think of would be, how do you take profit? I mean, what's your criteria for taking profit? That's the hardest thing that I find is knowing when to cash out, basically.
Okay, what I've been doing, because we were in a pretty volatile time, we're getting some crazy moves, we're getting lots of sideways, and then some pretty strong moves.
Yeah.
What I've been doing is I've been setting my stop, entering the trade. Soon as I can get this thing into 3-4 points of profit, I'll go protect it. I'll take a really small trade if it comes back and retraces on me, but I just hope that it really rips at that point. And when it rips, I then use the alternative trigger to take me out of the trade. So if it makes sense, I'll use a trailing stop until I think the profit's big enough. And then I get my stop out of the way and let this system reverse me.
Yeah.
And that's how I've been able to hold some massive trades, like unusually large for even, for me over my trading history of the ES. I've held some day trades that I wouldn't normally have held before. They're not always easy to get to that point. Totally agree with you.
That's the hard part, is getting to that point where you're in that position, isn't it? That's basically what I try to do, is get a position that has no risk and then see how far it will go.
Exactly. And I do the same thing just on a micro scale.
Yeah.
And if we were always, I think if we go back to just a, bullish market, you probably can relax that. But in this, when we're really in the same trading range, just one day up, one day down, back and forth, I've been playing that stop a lot tighter, and it bites you, and it rewards you.
Yeah,
it's
tough thing, stops.
Yeah. Today was probably the hardest day we've had with this system for a while, because of the size of the candles prior to the moves. These were tough spots to hold on to, because if the range was so big compared to what the day was doing before the actual trade triggered. So you could, it was, yesterday would have been a great day to show an example because it was a lot easier, but that's, we got to look at the hard days too. But I don't know a better way. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want to do for stops. I think that's what the beauty of this is, that like everything that's been on this screen, there is a lot of room for personal interpretation, how it fits into your own personal style. And I haven't figured out the two things I don't know yet is how much risk initially I should let the trade have because of the success rate of the system. The system's more successful than I am ballsy to let it work.
Yeah.
So I got to figure that out, and that profit taking method. So
yeah, I think with what I do, I take much less risk per trade because I don't have to take a full futures contract. So basically, I'm doing micros. But what I mean, I'd probably leave a stop of about 20 would be fine. I'd be comfortable with it, but I might try and tighten it up to what you're doing. And like you said, like the market's been difficult recently, especially for someone who's always got a bullish bias like me. It's been very challenging. So I think it's lucky I haven't really been trading the last 2 weeks, because I think I would have lost my shirt, to be honest, if I'd been trading the last conditions. But I think this could be really helpful for me to actually cope with the conditions a bit better.
Right. Well, I've found it amazing, Bob. I really have. Today was, in my opinion, one of the harder days to use the system, but it still worked. That's the crazy part of it. We can get in our own way. And my concern is to recognize the type of day. And I don't know if you understand, I think we had this conversation in the room in chat, is when I think it's a choppy kind of period, and that may not just be today's choppy, but we're in a 3-day choppy range and we're moving through that range. Those don't tend to be really impulsive screaming moves. They're very, very green red kind of thing.
Yeah.
Those are the days that I find looking where you would stop the trade and make that close to your entry.
Yeah.
That way you can get away with that $20 stop. And if it doesn't work, it's very clear the line in the sand that you should have used to say that's going to work or not going to work. When it's trending, and we had a day earlier this week where it was just one day, it was just, I think it was 2:30 in the afternoon on the 15-minute before we even had one red candle on the chart. It was just green, 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 green. Wow. The very next day, it was the same thing. Red, 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 red.
Yeah, I remember
red,
that. I remember that because I thought, oh, I missed it. And then the next day I was like, oh.
Yeah, it came all the way back. Those to me, now you're not going to pick up those entries at your stop. You're not going to be able to improve your entry good enough because it's trending and you've got to just kind of, if the trigger happens, you had to take it the moment it triggered or you missed the trade entirely. But those are kind of nice because they rip so hard after the trade triggers.
Yeah.
There's almost, no retrace. So I think there's a real nuance to determining a choppy type pattern or a trending type pattern on the two different ways in which you manage your stops and how you manage your profit.
Yeah, I think where, I mean, the trending kind of days I've kind of got, I can cope with those well usually, but that's basically because I'm firing longs at the chart all day. So when it's a day like that, that works for me. But the choppy conditions are where I lose a lot of that profit, and that's where I think I can do a lot better by focusing on the system that you've outlined.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I don't know if what I started doing with this system also, and I know it's difficult for you, Bob, because I don't think you have access to options or even, options that pay you for DK. But what I have been doing is when I get a strong buy signal is I buy a cheap option, whether that's a put or a call, depending on up or down. Then I let the market move to what I think is going to be the extent of the range, which in this case, we've kind of got past information to help us with that. Then I sell an option against that, which yesterday, the ones I was selling, I was getting more than what I paid. So the trade was already providing me a credit. But now I've got that position in play that costs me no money, and I'm just building them on a regular basis, but using this system to help me trigger what I'm going to do with those trades.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, to be honest, I don't have access to options these days, so I don't think I understand them enough to actually start getting involved in them at this point. But I keep saying to myself, I'm going to learn more about them, but I've been saying it for years and I haven't really got any further, to be honest.
Well, if you're going to there's enough guys playing with options in this room that it would be a good place to play with that. I know that, quite a few of us are quite happy to talk about options. So
Yeah, I see you talking about it, and I mean, I'm interested, but I think the most of the detail, the nuance is probably going over my head. But yeah, I will probably involve myself in those discussions a bit more in future.
yeah, I can't imagine not having. Well, see, I use the options as my longer term trade. Because I can 100% control risk when I shut the screen off at night. I completely know what my maximum risk on my portfolio is.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about them for holding, in these times, and we don't know the market's going to drop 100 points overnight or go up 100 points overnight.
It's insane, isn't it? I was looking at it thinking, I think if I'd been trading heavily the last 2 weeks, there probably would have been about 6 occasions where I thought I'd caught the bottom, no question, and then got taken out.
I believe that. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, volatility is good if you're a trader, really, but I feel I haven't made the most of it, but I haven't really been trading. But it's been, it's the sort of market that scares me, actually. But I think I can actually, I feel more confident approaching it after what you've explained.
Okay, good. Well, we can leave it at that. If there's no more questions, make the recording nice and short. And now that hopefully that gives you more to look at and more to add to discussion. I'm happy to discuss during the day, as it's happening, what I'm seeing, what you're seeing. I need to be in the habit of doing that more, but sometimes the room goes pretty quiet, so I'm
yeah, I mean, I'm in and out because I'm doing a day job as well, so I've got to keep the man happy as well.
Right.
So yeah, that's. But yeah, I'm there most of the day, on and off. So
yeah, that's it. That's the only problem with this. I can see that the majority of the guys in our room, and that is because this isn't their full-time gig. So these signals coming at random times make it difficult to say, well, I can watch it for the first hour in the morning. Well, we may not get a signal for the first hour in the morning.
Yeah.
What I have been finding is that 11:30 to 1:30 time frame lately has picked up some very nice trades. That seems to be and later in the day. So if there's a time to sit down with this system, I think it's from 11:30 on Eastern time. And
okay, I mean,
kind of forget about it before that.
That's actually pretty convenient for me because that's the end of my working day, really. So I can do that, no problem.
Yeah, that's good. And I know that a lot of guys want to see if they can catch the first hour on open and then go do their day's work. And so far, I'm not sure that's the best time for this system, because
it's always seemed a complete nightmare to me, the open. I mean, it's just one way then another. It just doesn't seem. Well, some days it's very strong, but some days it just doesn't seem to know what it's going to do.
Completely agree. And when it doesn't know what it's doing, the data is coming through not knowing what it's going to do. You can see with the gray magnet line is at 11:30 it goes to 5, and it didn't move again until it jumped to 6. But before that it was -3 +4 -3 +4. So all morning you could see that am I getting a clear picture of what the top 6 are doing in the S&P 500? No, they look like they're going up, look like they're going down. But then in the afternoon, it became very clear. How can this market drop if the 5 of the top 6 are up and up fairly strong?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's even before you've explained it to me like this and how you're using it, it's been such a valuable way to look at the market and see, what you expect is going to happen. I mean, it really is genuinely predictive, which is not true of most things you find. Most indicators, they're not actually giving you a clue what's going to happen. They're just telling you a story, kind of thing.
Right. They're telling you kind of what happened.
Yeah.
And of course, that's what this is doing, is telling you what happened, but it's telling you market data at that exact moment of what is actually going on inside of the S&P 500.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, I haven't seen anything that tracks from the open. They're usually tracking from yesterday, not today. And it's functioning in real time. So it's to me, I'm wondering why it took me so dang long to figure it out.
Well, the simplest ideas sometimes don't emerge until after we've tried everything else.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to find it more valuable now after this call. I think it's been really helpful.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, I'm fine. We can keep chatting, but I'm just going to shut the recording off.